The sun was a pale yellow coin in the hazy sky of Hope's Promise. Leo Cruz wiped sweat from his forehead with a greasy sleeve. He was deep inside the colony's main water pump, his hands working on a faulty valve. The air smelled of wet earth and engine oil. It was a quiet afternoon, the kind that stretched out long and peaceful. Then the quiet ended. A low rumble started, not from the ground, but from the sky. It grew into a deafening roar. Leo scrambled out of the service pit. He looked up. The sky was no longer blue. It was filled with ships. They were long and dark, like knives cutting through the clouds. They moved in silence now, a terrible, unnatural quiet after their arrival. They did not look like any human ship he had ever seen. A high-pitched whine split the air. Beams of green light lanced down from the black ships. They struck the colony's communications tower first. The metal structure glowed orange, then white, then melted into a pool of slag. The beams kept moving. They hit the school. They hit the hospital. Explosions bloomed one after another, silent flashes followed by the delayed thump of sound. There was no warning, no message. They were just erasing the colony. Leo's heart hammered against his ribs. His sister. Maya was in the comms hub. He started to run. He sprinted past burning fields, the heat blistering his skin. People were running everywhere, screaming. A transport shuttle exploded on the landing pad, throwing a piece of twisted metal that landed with a crash just meters away. He saw things he would never forget. A man trying to pull someone from a collapsed house. A child standing alone, crying in the street. He did not stop. He had to get to Maya. The comms hub was a scene of chaos. Part of the roof was gone. Panels sparked and smoked. He found her crouched behind the main console, her face smudged with soot, her hands flying over a secondary terminal. "They're not answering," she yelled over the noise. "No one is answering. I'm sending on all bands." "We have to go," Leo shouted back, grabbing her arm. She shook him off, her eyes wild with focus. "They need to know. Someone has to know what's happening here." She slammed a button. A recording light glowed red. Her voice was raw with fear. "This is Hope's Promise. They are killing everyone. No soldiers here. Just us. Please, someone." A green plasma bolt tore through the remaining wall. It was a blinding flash of heat and noise. Leo threw himself at Maya, shoving them both behind a heavy support column as the ceiling above the console collapsed in a shower of durasteel and fire. For a long moment, there was only the sound of crackling flames and his own ragged breathing. He pushed the debris off them. Maya was alive, coughing, her arm bleeding from a cut. The comms array was gone. Their last hope of calling for help was a molten heap. The attack from above had stopped. Leo helped Maya to her feet and they stumbled to a broken window. The black ships hung in the sky, motionless. The colony below was a ruin of smoke and fire. The aliens were done. They had wiped the surface clean. Maya leaned against him, her body shaking. "They think we're weak," she whispered, her voice hollow. "They think no one will come for us." Leo held her, his own fear hardening into something cold and sharp inside his chest. He looked at the destruction, at the silent, arrogant ships. He felt a hatred so pure it was like a physical thing. Then a new sound began. It was a low, deep thrumming that started in his feet and traveled up his bones. It was not from the alien ships. It came from above them, from the empty space beyond the atmosphere. The air itself began to vibrate. High above the alien fleet, the fabric of reality seemed to tear, and a shape began to force its way into the sky. The tear in the sky widened, a violent rip of purple and white light. From it, ships began to emerge. They were not sleek or silent. They were blocky, angular, and covered in thick gray armor. They looked like floating fortresses. On their hulls, painted in stark white, were the letters EFS. On the bridge of the lead ship, the EFS Vengeance, the air was cold and still. Commander Eva Rostova stood with her hands clasped behind her back. Her eyes were fixed on the main display. It showed a live feed from the surface of Hope's Promise. The burning fields, the melted school, the bodies. No one on the bridge spoke. The only sounds were the low hum of the engines and the quiet beeps of the consoles. A young officer named Liam turned away from his screen, his face pale. "Commander," he said, his voice tight. "The Cathar hit 12 colonies in the last cycle. All were civilian, no military presence." Rostova did not look at him. Her gaze remained on the destruction below. "Their strategy is clear. They believe we are soft. They believe we will break." She finally turned, her eyes scanning the faces of her crew. She saw their anger, their grief. She saw the same cold fire that burned in her. "They are wrong." The alien ships, the Cathar, began to move. They turned their knife-like prows toward the new arrivals. They did not hail them. They did not ask for surrender. Their weapons glowed with a familiar green energy. Rostova sat down in her command chair. The leather creaked. She leaned forward, her voice calm and clear. "All batteries, lock on. Target their engines and weapons first, then break them." The Vengeance did not wait. It opened fire. Massive railguns along its sides roared. They did not fire energy beams. They fired solid tungsten rods at a fraction of the speed of light. The rods struck the lead Cathar ship. There was no shield flare. The alien hull simply shattered, exploding inward in a cloud of metal and fire. The battle was not a dance, it was a slaughter. The human ships were slower, but they were tougher. Their armor absorbed the green plasma bolts. Their point defense cannon swatted down Cathar missiles like insects. They moved forward, a wall of relentless, brutal force. On the surface, Leo and Maya watched, their faces lit by the flashes in the sky. They saw a Cathar cruiser try to ram a human destroyer. The human ship did not dodge. It fired its main thrusters and met the charge head-on, tearing the alien ship in half with its reinforced bow. For the first time, Leo felt a grim satisfaction. This was not a rescue. It was revenge. Then he saw it. One of the Cathar ships, a smaller frigate, had been crippled. Its engines were dead. It was drifting, trailing atmosphere and debris, but its weapons were still active. It began to turn, slowly, painfully. It was not aiming at the human fleet. It was aiming its remaining plasma cannons downward, directly at the ruined comms hub, directly at the largest group of survivors huddled in the crater where the hospital once stood. Leo's breath caught in his throat. He pulled Maya down. There was nowhere to run. The frigate filled their vision, its weapons glowing brighter, charging for a final spiteful shot at the helpless people on the ground. A shadow fell over them. It was not the shadow of a Cathar ship. The EFS Valiant, a human destroyer, dropped from the battle above. It positioned itself directly between the dying frigate and the colony. It was a perfect, silent shield. The Cathar frigate fired. A full volley of green plasma struck the Valiant's broadside. The human ship's shields flared and died instantly. The plasma ate through the armor, burning deep into the ship's heart. The Valiant did not fire back. It held its position. Then, with a silent, terrible light, the Valiant's core reactor breached. The ship vanished in a white-hot expansion of gas and metal. The explosion consumed the Cathar frigate, wiping it from existence. The shockwave hit the surface, knocking Leo and Maya to the ground. When the light faded, the sky was clear of the immediate threat. But pieces of the Valiant, a ship that had just saved them, began to rain down on the colony like burning metal tears. The rain of debris from the Valiant finally stopped. The air smelled of ozone and burned metal. Leo helped Maya to her feet. They stood in silence, looking at the scorched earth where the ship had died for them. A low hum filled the air. A bright white light enveloped them. For a moment, Leo felt a strange pulling sensation. Then the ruined colony was gone. They were standing in a clean, white room with a polished metal floor. The air was cool and recycled. They were on a human ship. A woman in a black uniform with a medical patch on her arm approached them. Her face was kind but tired. "You are safe now," she said. "We are bringing up the other survivors. Let me look at that cut." As the medic treated Maya's arm, a door slid open with a hiss. Commander Eva Rostova walked in. Her uniform was crisp, but there was a smudge of soot on her collar and a grim tightness around her eyes. She looked at the two colonists, her gaze direct. "The Valiant's sacrifice was not in vain," Rostova said. Her voice was flat, without emotion. "It saved 143 civilians." Leo looked at her. They just flew in the way." "That is the protocol," Rostova replied. She turned and gestured for them to follow. "Come, you should see this." She led them out of the medical bay and into a long corridor. The walls were lined with windows. They looked out into the ship's main hangar bay. The sight made Leo stop walking. The bay was full of people. Not soldiers, survivors. They sat on blankets, their clothes torn and faces blank with shock. Children clung to their parents. Many were injured. Medics moved among them, but the scale of it was overwhelming. These were the people from all the other colonies, the ones the Cathar had attacked first. "This is the cost," Rostova said, standing beside him. "They hit 12 worlds like yours. They thought we were weak. They thought we would not fight back." She turned to face Leo. "They were wrong. Our fleet is now operating under a new order. We call it the Shield of Wrath. We do not ask for surrender. We do not take prisoners. We find them, and we erase them." Leo felt a chill. The cold satisfaction of the battle was gone, replaced by a heavy feeling in his stomach. This was not just defense. This was something else. "What happens?" Maya asked, her voice small. "When you run out of their ships to destroy?" Rostova looked from the survivors in the bay back to the siblings. Her eyes were like stone. "Then we find their homeworld," she said, "and we return the favor." The simple, direct way she said it horrified Leo. This was not the hope of rescue he had felt. This was a cycle of fire and blood that had no end. Before he could speak, a door further down the corridor hissed open. A young officer, Liam, hurried out. His face was tense. He stopped in front of Rostova and saluted. "Commander," he said, his voice low but urgent. "The long-range scouts are back. They found the main Cathar armada." Rostova's posture straightened. "Location?" Liam swallowed. "It's massing near the jump point to New Berlin." New Berlin, a core world, billions of people. Rostova's face did not change, but her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "Size?" Liam's eyes dropped to the floor for a second before meeting hers again. 3 times larger than our worst-case estimate. It's a trap. They were waiting for us." The Vengeance shuddered as it dropped out of warp. The view through the main bridge screen was not empty space. It was a wall of enemy ships. The Cathar armada was immense. Hundreds of their knife-like vessels filled the space around the New Berlin jump point. They were not moving. They were waiting. Commander Rostova's voice was calm over the ship-wide comm. "All hands, battle stations. This is what we came for." Then the trap sprung. The Cathar fleet surged forward. Green plasma fire streaked across the void, so thick it looked like a solid wave. The human fleet met the charge. Railgun fire lit up the darkness. The first impacts were deafening, even through the ship's heavy armor. Leo was not in a safe room. He had volunteered to help. He was now deep in the bowels of the Vengeance, in a secondary engineering corridor. His job was to watch a panel of pressure gauges and relay messages if the comms went down. It was dark, hot, and loud. Every hit on the ship's hull was a violent bang that shook the deck plates. A massive explosion rocked the entire ship. The lights flickered and died, replaced by dim, red emergency strips. Alarms blared. A voice screamed over the internal comm. "Bridge is hit! Bridge is hit! Deck 3 is open to vacuum!" Leo's blood ran cold. Rostova. The command crew. He had to know what was happening. The main comms were dead. He looked at the panel in front of him. It was a maintenance terminal, linked to the ship's internal data network. Maybe he could access something. His hands flew over the screen, pulling up system logs. Most were coded, but he found a low-level diagnostic feed. It was a jumble of data, but some of the tags were not in English. They were in the sharp, angular script of the Cathar. He had worked with alien tech before on the colony. He opened a translation matrix. It was rough and full of errors, but he could understand enough. The words scrolled past. Primary objective: contain and destroy human fleet. Weapon system, Elon translated, at 90% charge. Hold position until flagship engages. Weapon system. They had a hidden weapon, something they were holding back. He had to warn someone. He tried the comm panel again. Only static. He was cut off. The only way was to get to the command deck himself. He left his post and ran. The corridor was a nightmare. Wires hung from the ceiling. Steam hissed from a broken pipe. He could hear the distant, terrifying sound of metal tearing. The ship was dying around him. He turned a corner and stopped. The way was blocked. A Cathar boarding pod had smashed through the hull. Its metal jaws were still open. 4 armored Cathar warriors stood in the corridor. Their insect-like helmets turned. They saw him. They raised their plasma rifles. The barrels glowed with a sickly green light. Leo was trapped. There was no cover. He was just a farmer with a wrench in his hand, facing down alien soldiers. He had the most important message in the galaxy, and he was about to die before he could deliver it. Leo braced for the killing shot. It never came. A hail of gunfire erupted from a side corridor. 3 human Marines in black armor charged into the hallway. Their rifles barked, spitting solid rounds. The bullets sparked against the Cathar armor. One alien fell, then another. The Marines moved with brutal efficiency, finishing the last 2 with point-blank shots. The squad leader, a woman with a scarred chin, grabbed Leo's arm. "Civilians are supposed to be in the shelters. The bridge is gone. I have to get to the command deck," Leo yelled over the noise. "They have a hidden weapon, a super weapon." The Marine's eyes narrowed. She didn't question him. She just nodded. "With us. Move." They fought their way forward. The ship was a battlefield. They encountered more Cathar boarders. They passed rooms where human crew members fought the aliens with tools and fire extinguishers. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of blood. They finally reached the auxiliary command center. The room was crowded and chaotic. Commander Rostova was there, a bandage on her forehead, her uniform sleeve torn. She was shouting orders, her voice hoarse. Leo pushed his way to her. "Commander, they have a planet killer. It's charging near their flagship. This whole battle is a screen for it." Rostova looked at him, then at the main tactical display. The human fleet was being torn apart. They were losing. She saw it then. A pattern. The Cathar were hurting them, drawing their fire, keeping them busy. Her face went hard. She knew they could not win. Not this way. "New orders," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "All remaining crews, evacuate to the frigates. Signal the Retribution and the Wrath. Tell them to follow our lead." She turned to her navigation officer. "Plot a collision course for the Cathar flagship. Maximum thrust." Leo stared at her. "You're going to ram them?" Rostova gave him a grim, tired smile. "It's a good day to die twice." She pointed to a Marine. "Get him to a lifeboat." Leo shook his head. He moved to an empty console. "I can help. I know their systems." Rostova saw the determination in his eyes. She gave a short nod. The order went out. Across the fleet, the most damaged ships broke from the battle. The Vengeance, the Retribution, the Wrath, and a dozen other crippled vessels turned. They ignited their remaining engines and flew straight into the heart of the Cathar formation. They did not fire their weapons. They became the weapons. The Cathar tried to stop them. Plasma fire tore into the human ships. They kept going. The Vengeance, burning and broken, slammed into the side of the Cathar flagship. The explosion was immense. A chain reaction followed as the other suicide ships hit their targets. The hidden superweapon caught in the blasts vanished in a silent flash. The remaining human ships, seeing the sacrifice, rallied. They pushed forward, cutting through the leaderless Cathar forces. Later, Leo stood on the bridge of a rescue frigate. He held Maya close. The battle was over. They had won. But the cost was everywhere on the screens, in the wreckage that drifted between the stars. A transmission came through. The logo of Earth Command appeared. The message was short. The Cathar home system coordinates are confirmed. The fleet is waiting. Leo looked from the stars to his sister. He saw the same haunted look in her eyes that he felt in his own heart. Then he looked at the crew around him. Their faces were hard. Their eyes held no mercy. The defenseless were gone. Only the soldiers remained. He gave a single, slow nod. The war was not over. It was just beginning.